This is Jeremy Thatcher, Dragon Hatcher. Chapter 7 is called Still Life. Jeremy and Spess wandered around for nearly 2 hours without finding a trace of Mr. Elives' shop. It seemed to have vanished from the face of the earth. "Come on, Jeremy," said Spess at last. "I'm getting tired." Back at his house, Jeremy tried the phone book, but he found no listing for Elives' magic supplies, not even in the yellow pages. When he dialed information, the operator said, "I'm sorry, sir, but there is no such business." "What's so important about this place anyway?" asked Specimen. Jeremy couldn't figure out a way to explain without telling Spess things he shouldn't. Because they were both tired, this led to an argument. "Fine," shouted Specimen. "Next time take Mary Lou with you." Grabbing a pile of art supplies he had loaned Jeremy the week before, he stormed out of the room. "Great," thought Jeremy glumly. "Now even my best friend is mad at me." Tiamat poked her head over the edge of the sock drawer. A comfortable swirl of yellow flowed into Jeremy's mind. "But then, maybe I've got a new best friend," he thought with a smile. He decided to read some of the book Miss Priest had given him. Unfortunately, it seemed to have vanished in the general chaos of his room. "Just my luck," he groaned, throwing himself on his bed. "I don't want to go to school," he said when his mother set a fried egg in front of him on Monday morning. Poking a hole in the yolk, he watched the yellow goo ooze across his plate. "Can't say I blame you," said his father. "School's a repressive institution, aimed at subduing the masses. Still and all, it's easier to send you than have you underfoot, so off you go." "Herb," cried Mrs. Thatcher, "that's a terrible thing to say." "It's sad but true," warbled Jeremy's father, reaching for the blueberry granola. He began pouring the cereal into his Roy and Trigger bowl and added, "But then, life's tough, isn't it, Jer?" Jeremy nodded glumly and tried not to squirm when his mother put her hand on his forehead. "You haven't got a fever," she said, sounding relieved. "My diagnosis is Monday morning itis. I'm afraid your dad's right. About going, that is," she added, giving Dr. Thatcher a sharp look. Jeremy finished his egg and trudged out of the room. He didn't care about repressive institutions, and he certainly didn't plan to be underfoot. But he did have 3 very good reasons for wanting to stay home. The first was to remain with Tiamat. The second was to avoid Howard, Freddie, and Mary Lou. The third was to turn his room inside out looking for Miss Priest's book. At least the milk trick is working, he thought as he went out the door. With that bowl of milk inside her, Tiamat should doze all day. Actually, his main concern now was the rate at which she was growing. Her head, which had been no bigger than his thumb when she hatched, was already the size of a lemon. He wandered down the sidewalk, wondering what new horrors the day might hold. For one bright moment, he thought that if last Friday's humiliating scene with Mr. Kravitz had been the worst moment of his life, maybe from here on, things would get better. Somehow he doubted it. "Hey, Jeremy!" cried Spess, as Jeremy, still wrapped in gloom, trudged along the sidewalk in front of the Bothill home. "Wait up!" Jeremy smiled as Spess came bumbling down the front steps of his house. At least his friend was talking to him again. But before they really started to feel comfortable with each other, they heard a shrill whistle. Turning, they saw Martha Colgan standing at the corner. Taking a silver coach's whistle from her lips, she screamed, "Mary Lou! I found Jeremy! He's over this way!" "Uh-oh," said Specimen. "Looks like you'd better—" But Jeremy was already gone. Sprinting for all he was worth, he ran the entire distance to school. He knew he'd be safe once he reached his homeroom. Their teacher, Mr. Siegel, didn't put up with that kind of nonsense. Unfortunately, there were times in the school day when Mr. Siegel wasn't around. Howard Morton, who had seen Jeremy's mad dash from Mary Lou, started making kissing noises every time Jeremy walked past him on the playground. Even worse, Mary Lou told some of her friends that she was going to Jeremy's house for dinner that weekend, with the result that by the time Friday rolled around, people were chanting, "Jeremy Thatcher and Hot Stuff Hutton, the romance of the century," every time they saw him. Jeremy was so tired of the whole thing that he began to wish Tiamat was big enough to start eating some of the people who were really bugging him. At least Spess hadn't gone over to the enemy camp. When Howard made his kissing sound at Jeremy as they were walking into art on Friday, Spess whispered, "Maybe you should just punch him out." "Oh, what a great idea," replied Jeremy. "Heck, he's only 1.5 feet taller than me." Specimen looked hurt. "Well, at least he'd know you were serious."